Welcome to Travel Again Presents, the weekly travel roundup covering the headwinds and tailwinds impacting the business of travel. Please welcome our hosts, Mike McCormick and Ed Silver. Hello, Mike. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, Ed?
I'm doing good. It was nice to see you in Dallas earlier this week.
Yep. Yeah, good stuff. We've had a good week since we talked last in some ways. I mean, the Phillies have the best record in baseball, so we got to get our sports commentary in. Sixers went down to the Knicks, of course, and but it was a fun series to watch. But I'm all Phillies all the time now. Very exciting.
I know. I'm not sure how much sports talk we'll get in today. Typically, the podcast includes at least 20 minutes of sports talk. But today, I don't know. We'll have to see. But it was good to be in Dallas. We were preparing for our next roadshow event, which is coming up on May 22nd. For our listeners, feel free to go to our website and register to attend if you're in the Dallas area or want to fly in. It's going to be a great event hosted by Southwest Airlines at their headquarters. Register by Friday night at midnight, and you have a chance to win a ride on a flight simulator at Southwest's headquarters. So pretty cool.
Pretty cool is right. Yep.
Pretty cool. All right, Mike, if there is no other business, let's get to the news.
And there's a lot of it.
And there's a lot of it, as always. So, Mike, we are going to start today with airline news, which is our favorite topic, as always. And our first article is American Airlines reported their quarterly earnings, and American Airlines swings to a loss, but tops estimates for Q2 forecasts. So that was on CNBC. Why don't you give us some context here and tell us about AA's results?
Well, it wasn't just AA's results, but it was clearly all the airlines reporting, and there's a pretty broad range of outcomes. Everything from Delta, which we talked about last episode a bit, United we talked about last episode, but if I were to grade them, I mean, certainly Delta had a kind of an AA plus kind of outcome for the first quarter. They're very happy with it, as they should be. You had United, which probably swung more to an A minus. They, called out specifically their Boeing woes and what it did to cost them $200 million, they think, in the quarter. But other than that, very positive results, good on corporate, good on, leisure, et cetera. Southwest, reported as well. Some challenges there. They still, probably more of a B minus kind of category. One of the interesting kind of comments from their CEO was about reevaluating the boarding process, which they're famous for good or for bad. But otherwise, I think good indicators in there. But some certainly issues, and certainly Boeing woes for them are significant, right? But they have some cost issues to address. They've got some underlying issues that they've got to get after for sure. And then there's American. So certainly a mixed bag. I mean, I would put them more at the CC plus category. I mean, there's certainly some positive indicators, but a lot of the focus and certainly attention was around NDC impact, muddied with the fact of what they did on the corporate travel side in terms of cutting basically all of their corporate agreements, significantly reducing, changing the staff makeup in terms of people calling on the corporate travel community. So that was really focused in on, and even some of the analysts were calling out some of the issues around that. Where others saw a real significant double-digit 15-16% pickup in corporate travel, and were touting that as a big part of their results. With American, they were not willing to disclose the specific number. They were kind of talking single digits, talking around it a bit. And even the CEO then kind of cut in and said, well, we have some refinements to do here. So that, combined with their decision to push back their preferred agency deadline to July, certainly heightens the focus and, let's say, criticism around the American strategy in the market. And we'll talk about this more, certainly ongoing, but it's not always what you do, it's the way you do it. And in terms of the way Americans doing it, is very aggressive in the marketplace, and it's causing a lot of polarization, let's say, in the marketplace as well. So there's a lot there. And then on the outlying part too, not to be not just focusing always on the four majors, but you have JetBlue, which is going through a significant change in terms of they've got a new CEO who's really doing so far, I think, a fantastic job of bringing in new team, bringing in key players, bringing back Marty St. George, really trying to get them reset around just driving their own results, not and getting to a different place. JetBlue, his history is in this community, in the airline community. They've got had a good product, certainly have a lot of financial issues right now they've got to work through. But as we've seen in many other industries and many other parts of the travel industry, there's always a way to figure out a plan to come back. And I think they're hyper focused on it, and it'll be great to watch them. We've got the Alaska Hawaiian merger, that's up for consideration now and approval. And given what happened with Spirit and JetBlue, there's a lot of concern about will that happen? Should it happen? And then you have Spirit kind of out there with their CEO just came out and said that the industry is a rigged game and the U.S. consumers are long-term losers. And so you kind of put that in mix, and you've got really interesting times with the airline community. So in one headline and one article where quarterly earnings are being reported, there's a lot to unpack here, and we won't do it all in this podcast and just in our coverage, but certainly are ongoing with the work we're doing and the advisory work that you and I are doing. This is an area where we're spending a lot of time with our clients, focusing on how do you address all of this, significant change in the market that's here and coming and more to come. I liken it really back to when travel first went online. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about in terms of the resetting the table of how the industry works, the relationships. It's a really, really interesting time in travel from a business perspective.
Yep. Feels very chaotic. And like you mentioned, helping clients understand that as part of what we do, but helping our viewers understand that and get insight into it is really important.
Yes.
So thanks for that. Mike, our second article, I'm going to stick with airlines today around DOT regulations and requirements. Airlines will soon have to pay you back if they cancel or delay your flight. I think this one will be celebrated in many areas. Tell us about it.
Well, again, it should be, right? Because topics and certainly areas we've worked on back at GBTA to get for example, the 3-hour tarmac rule put in place. This is the role that government should play. The airlines it's not a free market. It's not these, the airlines enjoy a lot of protection in terms of slots, gates, even financial support through the pandemic was unprecedented. So there's a lot of benefits that the airlines receive, but then in terms of areas like this, the consumers needs protection and needs to be represented, and that won't necessarily be accomplished all the time by just airlines doing the right thing or doing things competitively from a service perspective. Sometimes there is a role for government to play to step in and protect and represent, in effect, the consumer. And this is another one of those cases. And I don't care what your politics are about where you feel government should or shouldn't get involved. In this case, the consumer does need some protection. We all need and rely upon a very healthy airline industry, but a certain minimum level of service, support, protection as consumers, so that we make sure that everybody is playing a fair game and the consumer is getting some protections as they should. And this one, I think, also is long overdue. So hats off. There's a lot of people that put work into this to get it to the point it's at, to basically help guide the DOT, have those views represented from a consumer perspective, and for the businesses throughout the industry, that really, again, rely on the industry to be healthy and for the traveler to be represented. And we've worked on this with travel again back in our project during the pandemic about traveler confidence and people feeling good about being able to go, feeling like they're, inevitably there are going to be weather delays and there are going to be disruptions and mechanicals and all. Yes, of course, that's a part of it. It's not it's never going to be perfect. But when people are, disrupted and, they're spending their hard-earned money, to travel, they need to have some protection and confidence that, when things do happen, that they're not going to just be hung out to dry and, not be able to, see some support financially or otherwise during a disruption. So again,
Yeah.
I think it's a really healthy thing. I think it's good. And, and again, well done.
Yeah. The part I like the most about it is you won't have to go chase these refunds. They will
Correct.
come to you automatically and not be hidden in some credit somewhere. And so I think
Yes.
that's really good. And I think you bring good context there. Mike, I'm going to continue with the good news on the airline front. An article out of NBC Chicago. American United reach agreement with the city of Chicago on a $8.5 billion O'Hare Airport overhaul. This is sounds like a good thing to me, but bring some context for our viewers.
Yeah, again, anytime you see, significant investment in the infrastructure, airports, that's largely it's a good thing. I mean, we need to continue to invest and reinvest. I think when you find, that this certainly a key hub like Chicago, that feeds so much of our, domestic aviation system, it's a good thing. The thing to be careful of always is the tax burden on the taxpayer, the traveler. We also have, times when, again, government needs to step in because, let's say unintended consequences of overtaxing, visitors, travelers can be, can really put let's say a damper on travel unintentionally, right? But in this case, assuming that it's being done responsibly, that the taxpayer is not being overburdened, the traveler is not being overburdened with additional taxes or fees, and we can find a way to make that kind of investment in a critical hub, aviation hub, I think it's great. And look, my age is showing a little bit here. I was around when when they did the first big, let's say reinvention of O'Hare, and what a difference that made. But is certainly due for a refresh, as we know. And meanwhile, just remember the backdrop is, post pandemic, the numbers of travelers are back to where we were and growing. And
Right.
if you look out and assume that you're going to have the natural growth, our airline systems, airports, et cetera, aviation system has to be able to support increasing numbers of travelers. And so that means those facilities need to take that into account. And that's part of the vision. It's not just a pretty new building. It's about having capacity increases that are required.
My local airport here is under some major construction. They're growing here in this area in North Carolina. I'd like to submit a list of other locations that I wish would invest some more in their infrastructure as well. But it sounds to me like this is good news all around.
It is. Yeah.
All right, Mike, we have one more story today, and there's a theme, I think, around this one. Navan set sights on IPO with new CEO and a leadership team coming in. And so this was in the Wall Street Journal, and a number of places reported it. But provide this context and the broader context, because I think this is very interesting for our viewers.
Yep. So Navan, formerly Trip Actions, as we know, a very, talked about, touted, high flying kind of, let's say, entrant in the marketplace. They've come in, doing it, providing an end-to-end solution, invested heavily in technology. But I guess what gets talked about the most is their very high valuations, and which is on one hand very exciting for the industry. On the other hand, certainly again one to watch from a financial IPO perspective about, is this going to go and is it going to be successful at the valuations that they've had in terms of money in and where it's going. Now, having said that, the bigger step back from it, the competitive picture is really interesting, right? Because now you have this, Navan going down their path. You've got the Amex GBT, which did a SPAC IPO, well, I guess over a year ago now, more, right? Yeah, and now announced, their intention to acquire CWT and getting approval on that. So that's lining up, and then you've got the Steve Singh announcing, his PE firm making the investment in direct travel and that acquisition as part of a whole perfect trip picture that that a little spoiler alert is a big part of our discussion with our special guest here today. But again, really interesting in terms of them. And then, you've got BCD, you've got the other players in the industry. So it's gearing up for a real battle royale in terms of going after the corporate customer in the coming years. The other piece of this, though, is that, and I've said this before, we've talked about this at length, is that the dynamics of the industry right now with what airlines are trying to do, which it requires a lot of significant capital investment in technology to be able to play the games that, and participate and compete in this new environment that American is driving, for example, and the industry overall. You combine that with the big players kind of realigning the amount of money coming in, but there's a long tail of the rest of the industry that's going to really be challenged in this environment. They don't have teams of developers. Your medium to small agency, it gets harder and harder in that environment. What's that going to mean for the industry, right?
Yep.
Overall, and how is distribution going to get done and service going to be provided? You've got even the biggest players in travel still don't command majority share of the marketplace. We have a long tail of providers in the industry, and there's a lot of concern about their viability and what's going to happen. So a lot of other issues at play here.
Yep.
But again, back to, you follow the bigger players here in terms of what's happening. And this is another indicator that there is, a lot coming and potentially a lot of change coming in the next 12, 18, 24 months. So certainly another big area to watch.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. That is the news for today. And we will be right back with our guest.
Well, so let's take a minute and talk about, you mentioned it earlier about our host, Southwest Airlines, but we definitely want to take a minute and talk about them and, certainly as their partnership with us and providing, just really a terrific facility. I'm really excited for this roadshow event that's coming up. Their team has, been first rate as they are to deal with. The culture within Southwest is just really fantastic. It has been, always is, but their team there, I mean, you see it when you walk the hallways and everything that they do, the way they treat each other, the way they, really, really have defined a culture there that is, exceptional. And I'm sure for the people there, a really terrific place to work. And again, it shows. And so we're excited to be able to go down and have our next roadshow event there and have them, again, a part of the Travel Again family with all this. So again, hats off to them and a big thank you and looking forward to the 22nd.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. It's now time for our interview. Today, we will be interviewing Sarosh Waghmar. He is the founder and CEO of Spotnana. Sarosh has spent over 20 years building successful businesses in the travel space. As founder and CEO of Spotnana, he leads the company's efforts to build the industry's first travel as a service platform. His passion is to provide the travel industry with a modern technology stack that opens the door to a new generation of traveler experiences. Before Spotnana, Sarosh founded WTMC, which was the first travel management company to build direct connections to global airlines at the highest possible levels of certification. Outside of Spotnana, Sarosh loves cooking and sharing meals with colleagues, friends, and family. Please welcome to the stage, Sarosh Waghmar.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Mike. Great to see you both again.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming on. So a little bit going on these days. Very exciting. I mean, I'll to start. I mean, look, I know Steve. Steve was, back in the GBTA days, he was, chair of our foundation, and again, just terrific to work with. I loved his perfect trip, right? And more even just to take the time to put out a broad vision, in a time when I feel like certainly, post pandemic, but just in general, it's not often that happens where somebody takes the time to really communicate to the industry and talk about, a path in a way that, business books have been written, like, sometimes the vision is never ultimately achieved. It's something to aim for, but it's we don't see that enough in our industry, I would say. And I think, when you start to see the picture of how, you all are thinking about the various areas coming together, again, I think it's hats off to that, to doing that and taking that approach. Now, having said that, I've also been around a long time in this industry, and Ed certainly, as well, and, been in the bowels of the industry, the technology and everything else. And it is unique from everyone I talk to of other industries too. Our industry has so many interdependent elements, and, it's clearly some of them very old. I mean, everything from air traffic control systems on one part of the equation, but on through that we still rely on. So, I'll start off from Spotnana, from your perspective. Why do you think this is achievable? I mean, is it achievable? And is it a pipe dream, or is it, is there a reality that could be delivered on in the next, in a foreseeable future?
That's a great question. You and Ed have been in this industry for a very long time. You've seen a lot of changes. And I think the biggest thing when we started Spotnana was, how do you build a platform that brings everyone together, and an open platform? I think this is really two important ethos, and the foundation of everything that you do forward. And if I could break it down a little bit more, was it's not about building a platform for just a customer or just a corporation. It was even about bringing the supplier together. In my previous company, when we, from a technology perspective, you think you can connect to APIs and make everything happen. And then you come to the travel industry, and then you get humbled from a technology perspective, and you realize that why do you need people who have deep travel knowledge to drive the change that technology can make? Technology at the end of the day is an enabler, and it's a force of good. But if you do not know whys behind why you're doing what you're doing, you're never able to achieve the ultimate outcome. And the single thing what Spotnana is building is like this modern infrastructure. But you're like, Sarosh, what does modern infrastructure even mean to a 5-year-old? Break it down for me. Tell me what is so fundamentally different here that previously was not done, and why is it possible today? I think the big thing in life, personally or professionally, is timing. With cloud computing, a lot of things have been possible. The cost to deliver this technology is possible. That's one. But the approach that was taken was, how do you build the system of record? Really, it's not about the booking tool or the front end. And if you think about travel, it's a human emotion. And, Mike, Ed, you both know that the bane of the existence for anyone is, I found this cheaper. Why is it that we shop on travel, but when it comes to Amazon, we just look at the price, we buy it, and we don't think twice? But every one of us, if I said we need to go to London or Dubai tomorrow, we'd start looking at different websites, because intrinsically as human beings, we believe there's a deal to be had.
Right.
And why? And the reason is, even the world's largest travel companies, irrespective of leisure or business, they're powered on legacy infrastructure. Now, mind you, that legacy infrastructure got us here. Our whole approach at Spotnana is like, you got to be thankful for people who got us here, but what are you going to do to take it forward? And with cloud computing, the whole premise was, by building out not just the booking tool, but the system of record, system of engagement, and bringing in this content. The big talk about NDC, it's less about NDC, it's about those distribution pipes and the reliant on everything that happened on the technology stack. Our whole premise was, how do you use this cloud infrastructure and create a trip in the cloud? You're agnostic to any pipe. At the end of the day, you and I just want the best fare. And sometimes the best fare is not the cheapest fare. The best fare is what I want when I want. And that is the fundamental thing that is missing, because how can you blame those previous technologies? Because those were built in 1950s and 60s. Credit to them that they've even managed to scale so far. And that's the piece in all of this noise. People seem to forget that I'm able to stand on shoulders of giants and even look a little bit further is because of what they have built. It's what folks like y'all have been talking about at GBTA for the last several years, that we are able to understand that this is possible now and today. But why is it possible is because of all the changes going on. And the approach that Spotnana took is, if I build for everybody, there were no visions of grandeur from day one that we want to be the largest TMC in the world. No, it was how do you build this platform that can support and carry everyone forward? And that is why it is possible, is because if you approach it from the plumbing, this is why we say at Spotnana, someone's got to clean the gutter. And that's what we decided to take on. It's like, if I can build it from inside out, and this is where that travel knowledge comes in, right? You notice that if you truly want to build with that approach, you'll be able to solve a lot more problems along the way for a lot of players in the ecosystem. This is not about the business corporation and the traveler and about a user experience, because it's way past that. This is about how are you going to help TMC scale, because TMCs typically scale, there's an existing tech stack. They can't do much around that, but everyone else around them, like all suppliers, like in any other industry, they're taking control of the distribution, reduce their costs. On Amazon, you have personalized offers. You don't get personalized offers on anything when you buy travel. They don't know who you are. They don't even know why you're going. In some cases, they don't even know who you are after the ticket is purchased, because it goes through so many middlemen. And that is what Spotnana's focus has been. If I fill that infrastructure and build that from ground up, I can actually connect the supplier to the corporation and to the end user finally. And that was the approach we've taken. And over the last 4 years, we've been continue making progress. And as you've probably seen with some of the announcements, a lot of folks are finally realizing that this is just a different approach, which is why we invented this travel as a service concept, because we believe that it should be able to be delivered. We've been talking of software as a service for such a long time, but this is only possible is because of the distribution landscape change too. In my previous company, when we built out those APIs, I thought, okay, now we've connected to NDC and everything should work. Little did you realize that you needed so many different players, not just the booking tool, it's all the underneath plumbing, the processing. How are you going to do all of that? Which is why building out this from ground up is really the approach that we've taken. And that it is possible today and now. And you and I both know that customers want this. And they are being, whether they are, sometimes they're realizing that with NDC talk has been going around for the longest time. But when the big boys like the US carriers decided that we're going to go all in and do this and control our distribution, everyone started waking up as, wow, this legacy infrastructure is not going to support it. And it's even about what pipes you have and where you get that content from. So
as Spotnana's a standalone, you've got the different elements under kind of the perfect trip piece, now the direct travel investment, et cetera. Do you find my outside view is that I think there's a power to having the different elements, payment, meetings, certainly the TMC up piece, as separate entities, because it allows you to kind of focus on your mission, the one you just described, and not potentially within a combined company where you're always, juggling the priorities and resources within. You have a mission. But do you find in the marketplace, do you think that people like other companies, other potential partners, within the industry are going to view you that way? I mean, I'm sure it had, certainly the direct travel announcement certainly, raised the profile significantly. Are you getting any kind of pushback on that? And, how do you manage through that in the marketplace? We kind of back to, where do you see fitting in competitively and otherwise?
Sure. So first I should clarify that direct travel was purchased by Steve Singh.
Yeah.
And investors. Spotnana cannot afford anything. We didn't purchase anybody. I just want to set the record straight.
Fair enough.
Direct travel is a customer that is going to integrate our tech stack.
Right.
We've obviously integrated with Troop and Center. These are other investments that Steve Singh and Madrona and the team have done.
Yep.
Whole premise is direct travel wants to go out to the market as a new age TMC offering this new tech stack. That's what they are doing. On our hand is we've always been a platform play. We do have our own customers that we service, but our long-term goals always have been is how do you build for more? How do you make sure that you can enable everybody? And which is why I started off the early conversation is like, there are no visions of grandeur to be the largest TMC in the world. It is about building a platform, and you can only call yourself a platform when other people are making more money of it. And that is what our goal has been from day one is, we say this with my obsession with food. And we brought this to Spotnana as well. It's about building longer tables and not higher walls. And it's about making sure that everyone in the ecosystem can use this software, which is why I said it's an open platform. You can consume it, you can embed it, and you can use components of it the way you want to,
Yep.
so that this can enable and help you scale. So there are a lot of TMCs that are already, will be making announcements this year, that are adopting this technology, besides customers or suppliers or channel partners. That's been our focus, and we will continue to invest around that.
So all this connectivity is about, enabling not just, let's say, a more efficient, effective way, but it's also, what's coming is, dynamic, continuous pricing, a big change in the way airlines want to price, bundle, package,
Right.
upsell, et cetera, and truly, their claim is like, look, back to their complaint is that so much of their profitability relies upon what was always called, more of the, it's like an upsell or an add-on, but to really optimize that, it's not about just adding on a component at the end. It's about having a much different articulated way about the way you're presenting the product. I understand from their perspective why they want that to happen, modern retailing, merchandising, et cetera. But for the consumer, I mean, does it get more complicated, more difficult to compare? Like you were saying, like, everyone wants to find value. Everybody wants a deal, right? And especially on travel seems to be just one that, like you said, people, if they're buying, paper products or something, online, they're just like, oh, click, and, I'll take 2 seconds and look, but I'm not going to really, but that same dollar savings on travel will be like, hard fought, right? But do you see it being a better experience for the customer ultimately in what we're enabling here? Because I think the jury's still out.
Sure.
And,
So let me give you some actual examples, without naming customers, obviously.
right.
What's being built. There's been so much noise on NDC on reducing distribution costs. Let's take that. Yes, you reduce distribution costs, but that's happening for the airline. What's happening for you? At the end of the day, the traveler wants to know, like, what is it in for me? Right? It's a normal question.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have the corporation too, right? If you think about when you service business travel, there are always two customers: the corporations, the CFO, the CPO, who actually signs the contract
Yep.
with the technology company or the TMC. And then there's a traveler who actually consumes the service or the value that is created. What's been happening with on the distribution side, and what Spotnana is doing with this modern infrastructure, is we're not only just, it's not about just connecting a pipe and just throwing it out there. It's about the servicing piece that we have scaled, the offer and order management, and we've built additional APIs to connect with these carriers to do a lot more integrated work that's outside the existing APIs. That's one. Now, how does that manifest itself to the traveler who's going from Seattle to Washington? When you're looking at a particular airline on any of the carriers that we've connected to, the large US carriers, when those display results come up for that particular corporation, suddenly you have obviously policy and all the usual things displayed, but the airline recognizes who you are, and for that corporation are able to provide you an upgrade.
Yeah.
Premium economy or based on what it is to business. There's no reason you will shop anywhere else. It's when you're getting that upgrade, you're willing to let go of even of your preferred carrier. So I might have a preferred carrier that could be a SkyTeam carrier from point A to point B, but I have One World and Star Alliance giving me NDC offers for my corporation. Everyone displays negotiated fares or preferred fares on top. We are going one level deeper and saying, hey, this is a preferred fare, but hey, traveler, for you, I have upgraded you. The conversation is suddenly changed. Why is that possible? Is because of the deep connection that we built. We are creating actual offers for those routes or for those regions for the carrier and the corporation. So now they are able to upsell and offer things that you're not able to get elsewhere. Or at the time of checkout, or you suddenly are getting a basic economy fare, hypothetically, but you're allowed to choose fares and bags and everything because of your status. Because airlines are recognizing that loyalty enablement that we've been talking about, entitled shopping based on who you are. That's happening on the platform even now.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay extra uh, preferred seat fees because it already recognizes based on your status. Suddenly, all those things become zero. At the end of the day, all of this adds value, but it reduces cost for the corporation, right? The travel costs come down because each segment is $70 to $100 one way on domestic.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we are doing with the carriers. So now it's just now beyond NDC. It's more about merchandising.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the things that we're building, we are bringing this to life with these deep integrations. Which is why the carriers will tell you. It doesn't. You don't have to believe me, but they'll tell you. I mean, Copa Airlines, we connected in one day. You've been in the industry for a long time, Ed and Mike. I mean, you will be able to acknowledge and say, okay, that is something special.
Is that a
And we
real
are-
story, Sarosh? One day.
you,
It doesn't
you,
seem
should,
real.
you should talk to them and they will tell you that.
Okay.
And I mean, and anyone who's on the 17.23
Yeah.
version, you can connect. I mean, and Ed, this didn't come about overnight. People keep saying Spotnana 4 years, raised so much money. I'm like, excuse me? This is my life work over 20 years. Silicon Valley likes to sensationalize things a lot. But
Yeah.
you know how long it takes to move this industry.
Yeah. Well,
This
that's
is
quite
No.
one day is quite an achievement, I will say.
And this is because we built this NDC framework
Yeah.
where we've taken a very different approach instead of connecting to carrier by carrier. But again, this is by doing this again and making so many mistakes. Y'all are only saying, okay, this happened, but I can tell you there's a lot of pain that went through before getting there. And now if someone's on 18, and we're building out this framework where we can turn on content very rapidly. So it just becomes like table stakes. We don't have to continue to invest in that. Otherwise,
Right.
you have to keep investing in each content pipe again and again and maintaining it. And you're right, some of the things that you were talking when the show started off, for people who are in this space, it's a heavy cost. You need to have deep pockets to continue to
Yeah.
build all these things.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
going to be easy for them to maintain 10, 20 connections that are continuously, being upgraded
Changing
over
and
time.
evolving.
Yeah.
And a lot of these airlines want to continue to invest with us
That's
more.
right.
It's like, okay, what else can I do? How can I enable loyalty, or how can I do entitled shopping, or what can I build outside NDC? Because now we already got the distribution pipe. Can I add this one more thing
Yeah.
to another API with you?
Okay.
So kind of little shifting gears a little bit, there, aside from Spotnana, there are other, you have other kind of competitors out there. It's a kind of a green field of opportunity, but there are other entities out there providing different ways of creating connectivity and access, et cetera, but maybe with different business models ultimately, but out there. How do you long term, how do you view, how you're going to keep Spotnana, what's your competitive advantage? What's your approach to market? How are you going to continue to differentiate the marketplace?
I think it comes back to the basics. Let me give you an example that might resonate with you. If you're Jeff Bezos on the show today, and if you ask Jeff, what would you have built first? Sold books or built AWS? You know what the answer would have been.
Right.
But history will show that they sold books. They sold a lot of things, trying to scale the e-commerce shopping platform. At some point of time, they had some challenges scaling it. Site went down, etc. Just course of business, because they were doing so many different things.
Yeah.
And they went out there and said, could someone help us scale this? When no one did, they built that infrastructure for themselves. The first customer of AWS back in the day was no one but Amazon.com.
Right.
When we started this conversation today, I said, we're building this modern infrastructure. We started off Jan of 2020 with this vision to build this infrastructure. But the first customer was Spotnana, the travel agency, the travel management company.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And our whole approach was make sure that you build this platform open, that you can consume this and you can let others consume it, and make sure you can push it out downstream. So you can enable a TMC, you can enable other partners to embed you. And that is why when you build APIs for yourself are very different when you build APIs that are exposed to the world, what Stripe and Shopify have done.
Right.
Which is why this, as much as we say this is modern infrastructure, this is an economic infrastructure, because this is not just a booking tool. It's taking care of the whole TMC processing bit. There's so much that goes on in the guts inside of a TMC that most people really don't even know, or even really care to know, right? Just get that done.
Yeah.
And no one wants to look at that black box. But there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Ed, you know this better than I do. And it's that heavy lift that we solve for.
Yeah.
And then we make that fully open. And, this is why we came up with this travel as a service. So I think our big focus is, this technology moat that we have, and how we've gone about building the business. At the end of the day, it's not just technology; it's about execution, right? We are so fortunate that we have an amazing team that's building Spotnana, and amazing investors that deeply, deeply believe in us and have seen this pain before. I jokingly say I convinced Steve to come out of retirement and said, Steve, this time we're going to build a travel company, not an expense company that got into travel.
Yeah.
And he laughed about it, and he knows that. And I said, listen, my focus is purely on travel. This is what
Yeah.
I'm passionate about, and this is what we want to solve for. So I think that's the big thing for us at the end of the day is, how do you stay focused and how do you out execute anybody else? And this industry is there are lots of changes coming, as you probably know, and it'll continue to evolve. For us is, continue focus on building this platform that others can adopt, others can use. And I think at the end of the day, that will be the biggest differentiator, how you're building for everybody versus yourself.
So final question. It's something Ed and I started to ask a lot, because it's a little bit of a contrarian question, because in this environment where seemingly so much is changing, and like I said it is really unprecedented. I've a bit of the perspective of the history of the industry over time, and it's like, wow, this is one of those inflection points where so much is changing. But then got to ask the question, what's not changing? What don't you think will change in the travel industry? What's the it's not all changing. There's certainly some things that remain the same. Any thoughts on what those are for you?
What's not changing? I think try to think about is what's not changing. I think travel is a human emotion. It's here to stay.
Yeah.
COVID, every other unfortunate event in history has shown that travel will go away. Like, travel is not going away. Travel is a need for human beings. And every time they write us off, we only come back stronger. And they say, like, those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. They've written off travel repeatedly. And I do understand recession and business cycles, and the first cut they have is travel. But you saw what happened with COVID. There's revenge travel, an actual term coined that I just must get back on the plane. And human beings are human beings at the end of the day. And which is why I said travel is just one of those things in life that connects all of us. It has been connecting us, it has made the world smaller, and we tend to appreciate a lot more when we travel, and that's not changing, at least in my opinion.
Okay. Well, Sarosh, thanks for your time today. Thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate your candor and your comments. I love the someone has to clean the gutters. I love that's the best quote of the day. But I appreciate you coming on and sharing your vision and thoughts about the industry, and be exciting. We'll love to have you back as we continue this and we watch yet more change in the industry. But thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Sarosh. Sarosh Waghmar is founder and CEO of Spotnana. Thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you both.
And we'll be right back with headwinds and tailwinds, right, Ed?
That's right. So real quick, I just want to do a shout out to a couple of our sponsors. Our first sponsor is BLS. BLS is a great chauffeur company, and we have used them many times, both personally and professionally. And so thank you to their continued support. Also to Omni Hotels and Resorts for their continued support of Travel Again. Both are great companies to work with. Last week in Dallas, we stayed at the Omni Los Colinas last week while we prepared for the road show, and they rolled out the red carpet for us. So really great partners, and thanks again for their sponsorship. And now we will wrap with headwinds and tailwinds. We will identify what we think is adding value to travel or taking it away. Mike, today I'm going to start with my headwind.
Hit the head.
Go for it. Yeah, my headwind today is an article I read from the New York Times. It was called Pay Later Vendors Have an Issue with Credit Bureaus. And this article talked about how the buy now, pay later companies are struggling to figure out how to work with the major credit unions, Experian, TransUnion. And those companies are saying it's time that those quote unquote loans start to appear on consumers' credit reports. But it's not such a simple plug and play model. These don't exactly fit into the model of credit per se. Are these loans? Are they credit? And they don't exactly fit into the model that the credit unions have. My biggest concern and why I put it into a headwind is anytime you have consumer confusion over whether or not what you're doing to purchase your travel is going to impact you in some way, in a negative way, it might make you pause before you buy it. One of the big reasons travel surged last summer in particular is because of this buy now, pay later model. And so whenever I see, consumer confusion, I bucket this into not good for travel. And so I would like to see this get worked out, have it be very clear whether these buy now, pay later, loans will end up on your credit report or hopefully not end up on your credit report. And so I bucket this into the headwind and slowing us down, and hopefully it gets sorted out quickly, Mike.
Yeah, good one to watch. Well, we ending on a positive note. Let's go with a tailwind, right? And this one was just came across an article. It was about the stopover programs that still kind of exist out there, where if you're traveling and you can opt to have this like long, up to like almost like a 24-hour connection, which allowed you maybe to go do a little mini tour of the local city. Some hotels, or some airlines will actually pay for a hotel because it just, it allows them to fill seats on some flights that otherwise, maybe don't naturally go together. But it, some kind of off-peak inventory in terms of time when you're coming in and leaving, et cetera. And, those are some of the things that to me are still the kind of like the fun of the travel industry for somebody that's trying to find some value, maybe do something a little different, see a city they haven't seen. It's all good for tourism. It's all great for travel. And a little bit of that, I don't know, like kind of like value. I don't know what you call it. Like kind of like, it's like a little hidden gems of the industry. My point would be like, please, airlines, don't shut this stuff down. I mean, in the world where it seems like every company is trying to squeeze out every last, dollar customer benefit, you got to leave a little bit of the magic of this in there, a little bit of just the hidden value, maybe some, the stories where people actually, get something where they just didn't get nickel and dime for it yet one more time. And this harkens back to maybe some of the earlier days of the travel industry where there was a lot of this, and it created a lot of goodwill, a lot of people just excited, where they find some value and get to do something unique. So in this era, I just was like, saw that and go, oh, wow, that's still going on out there. That's great. So again, one of those that I had mixed feelings because I was like, really good to see it. I thought it was great. On the other hand, it's like, oh my God, don't write about it because somebody may find it and some
shut it down.
Some pricing person will grind that baby down and take it away, but hopefully not. But again, good stuff. And the more that I think just generally across the travel industry, if you look at, every sector, it's not just airline, but hotel, car, tour, cruise, etc. Anytime you can find some, deliver some of those special values,
some fun in the chain.
Fun, some unexpected benefits. It's great. It really makes it really helps our industry in general, right? So anyway, a nice headwind to finish on.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. And that is our show today. Thanks again to our sponsors, BLS, Southwest, and Omni Hotels and Resorts. Mike, we will see everyone back here in approximately 2 weeks. And thank you to our viewers.
Great to see it. As always, Ed, a pleasure.
Thank you, Mike.